www.sweetpapito.com. The attitude that we would have is, the universe is lining it up just right, and the timing will be just exactly right. And I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm doing everything just exactly right. And in the perfect timing, a timing that I cannot even quite see yet, this is going to happen. And meanwhile there isn't anything else for me to do. How is it that you all get so involved in things that have nothing to do with you? The law of attraction is a huge law. So next time you find yourself thinking, well, I should write one more affirmation, or I should do one more virtual reality. I need to do something. I must be doing something wrong, or what I'm wanting would be, we say, what you need to do is chill out. What you need to do is relax and accept that you've done your work. You've asked. The universe is doing its work. It is answering. Your work is to get into this place where you joyfully receive it. You can't take score about when it's coming or where it's coming, or how it's coming. In other words, you accept, in this faith-based attitude, it is coming and all is well. And as you do that, then, when you really get there, then it doesn't matter how long it takes, but it doesn't take any time, then. If you could say, I don't care how long it takes, you're there. And then it takes no time. But as long as it matters how long it takes, you're not there, and it's going to take a long time. www.sweetpapito.com. This subtle force of the repeated suggestion overcomes our reason, acting directly on our emotions and our feelings, finally penetrating to the very depths of our subconscious minds. This is the basic principle of all successful advertising, the continued and repeated suggestion that first makes you believe, after which you are eager to buy. In recent years we have enjoyed a vitamin spree. For centuries tomatoes were looked upon as poisonous. People dared not eat them until some fearless person tried them and lived. Today millions of people eat tomatoes, not knowing that they were considered unfit for human consumption. Conversely, the lowly spinach nearly went into the garbage pail after the United States government declared that it did not contain the food values attributed to it for decades. Millions believed this and refused to honor Popeye's favorite dish any longer. Clearly, the founders of all great religious movements knew much about the power of the repeated suggestion and gained far-reaching results with it. Religious teachings have been hammered into us from birth, into our mothers and fathers before us and into their parents and their parents before them. There's certainly white magic in that kind of believing. Such statements as what we don't know won't hurt us and ignorance is bliss take on greater significance when you realize that only the things you become conscious of can harm or bother you. We have all heard the story of the man who didn't know it couldn't be done and went ahead and did it. Psychologists tell us that as babies we have only two fears, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. All of our other fears are passed on to us or develop as a result of our experiences. They come from what we are taught or what we hear and see. I like to think of men and women as staunch old trees that can stand firm amid the many crosscurrents of thought that whirl around them. But far too many people are like saplings that, swayed by every little breeze, ultimately grow in the direction of some strong wind of thought that blows against them. The Bible is filled with examples of the power of thought and suggestion. Read Genesis, chapter 30, verses 36 to 43, and you'll learn that even Jacob knew their power. The Bible tells how he developed spotted and speckled cattle, sheep, and goats by placing rods from trees, partially stripping them of their bark so they would appear spotted and marked, in the watering troughs where the animals came to drink. As you may have guessed, the flocks conceived before the spotted rods and brought forth cattle, ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. Moses, too, was a master at suggestion. For 40 years he used it on the Israelites, and it took them to the promised land of milk and honey. David, following the suggestive forces operating on him, slew the mighty, heavily armed Goliath with a pebble from a slingshot. www.sweetpapito.com. As long as the law of attraction has only the don't want script, it is restricted to orchestrating that script over and over. We must give the law of attraction some new material to work with. What do you really want in your relationships? Security? Affection? Loyalty? Companionship? Communication? What? Do you wonder why you keep attracting certain types of people into your life? Are you tired of feeling disappointed in love? Have you ever been blindsided by someone you thought was a friend? Do you feel desperate to find that special person you can live with forever? Here are 3 steps that can help you in attracting more satisfying relationships. Step 1. Make a thorough list of all the characteristics or scenarios of your past relationships that you don't want to experience again. You can use the T tool for this exercise, or just take a fresh sheet of paper and draw a large T on it. Label the left-hand column, I don't want, and the right-hand column, I do want. Ask your inner self to remind you of past events that you do not want repeated. Write a few words about each event that express the essence of that event. Step 2. Examine each item on the I don't want side and ask yourself this question: if I don't want this, what do I want? One major reason why we keep attracting the same unsatisfactory relationships is because we fail to use the contrast contained in those negative events to get clear about what we do want. Step 3. Write a script about how you do want your relationships to be. As long as the law of attraction has only the don't want script, it is restricted to orchestrating that script over and over. We must give the law of attraction some new material to work with. Scripting accesses all 4 parts of the brain. The left brain, which deals with words and logic. The right brain, which understands patterns and symbols. The midbrain, which experiences emotions. And the brain stem, which registers physical stimulation. When we write a script, starting with a phrase such as, if I had my way, and use our imagination about that which feels good to us, we are accessing our right and midbrain. A thought or feeling comes and we translate it into words that symbolize the thought or feeling. Writing the script engages the body, which registers in the brain stem. When all 4 parts of the brain are engaged, a powerful message is delivered to the universe. I like to end my scripts with the phrase, and do this in ways that are for my highest good and the highest good of everyone involved. This is a phrase that helps me let go of how this will all happen, and allows the law of attraction to bring it about in the very best possible way. Remember, the law of attraction brings us precisely what we vibrate. So if we want to experience relationships that are more satisfying, then we must change our dominant vibration to match the experiences we want to have. www.sweetpapito.com. The ether with which space is filled carries these thought waves in all directions, and the surface of the earth, particularly in the densely occupied portions, is filled with these waves. These waves, carrying the mental vibrations, coming in contact with each other, tend to set up combinations on one hand, or else neutralize each other on the other hand. That is to say, if 2 sets of waves of a similar nature meet, there is likely to be a combination formed between them, just as between 2 chemicals having an affinity for each other. In this way, the mental atmosphere of places, towns, houses, etc., is formed. On the other hand, if currents of opposing vibrations came in contact with each other, there will be manifested a conflict between the 2, in which each will lose in proportion to its weakness, and the result will be either a neutralization of both or else a combination having vibrations of an average rate. For instance, if 2 currents of mental energy meet, one being a thought of love and the other hate, they will neutralize each other if they are equal, or if one is stronger than the other, it will persist but robbed of much of its strength. If it were not for this neutralizing effect, we would be largely at the mercy of stray currents of thought. Nature protects us in this way, and also by rendering us immune to a considerable extent. But nevertheless, we are affected by these waves to a considerable extent, unless we have learned to throw them off by knowledge of the laws and an enforcement of them by practice. We all know how great waves of feeling spread over the town, city or country, sweeping people off their balance. Great waves of political enthusiasm, or war spirits, or prejudice for or against certain people, or groups of people, sweep over places and cause men to act in a manner that they will afterward regret when they come to themselves and consider their acts in cold blood. Demagogues will sway them, or magnetic leaders who wish to gain their votes or patronage. And they will be led into acts of mob violence, or similar atrocities, by yielding to these waves of contagious thought. On the other hand, we all know how great waves of religious feeling sweep over a community upon the occasion of some great revival, excitement or fervor. The effect of these thought waves, so far as the power of induction is concerned, of course depends very materially upon the strength of the thought or feeling being manifested in the mind sending them forth. The majority of persons put but little force into the mental manifestations, but here and there is to be found a thinker whose thought waves are practically a stream of living will, and which of course have a very strong inductive effect upon the minds of others with whom the waves come in contact. But it likewise follows that a number of persons thinking along the same lines will produce a great volume of power by a combination of their thought currents into great streams of mental force. Then again, there is another feature of the case that we must not lose sight of, and that is the attraction between minds, by virtue of which one draws to himself the thought waves of others whose thoughts are in accord with his own. The contrary is true, for there is repulsion between the minds of persons and the thought waves of others whose thoughts are not in accord with his own. The contrary is true, for there is repulsions between the minds of persons and the thought waves of others antagonistic to their thoughts. To quote a well-worn and much-used expression to illustrate this truth, like attracts like, and birds of a feather flock together. There is ever in operation this marvelous law of attraction and repulsion of mental energy, persons allowing their thoughts to run along certain lines, and permitting the feelings to be expressed in certain ways, draw to themselves the thought waves and mental influences of others keyed to the same mental keynote. And likewise they repel the waves and influences of an opposing nature. This is an important fact to remember in one's everyday life. Good attracts good and repels evil. Evil attracts evil and repels good. The predominant mental attitude serves to attract similar influences and to repel the opposing ones. Therefore watch carefully the character and nature of your thoughts, cultivate the desirable ones and repress the undesirable ones. Verily, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. www.sweetpapito.com